Next with the continuances if I actually hit send. Yep.
I
Cool.
saw it. We do have a quorum. So when 5 o'clock rolls around, we'll get started.
With the continuances if I actually hit send. Yep.
I saw it.
He's got a device up in there. Um,
Ready to go?
Yep.
All right. Good evening, everybody. This is the March 20th meeting of the Nantucket Conservation Commission. My name is Seth Engelborg, Chair of the Conservation Commission. We will start our meeting today by establishing a roll call quorum of members. So members, when you hear your name, please respond in the affirmative. Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Mizzarelli,
Hi.
Joe Plandowski,
Here.
John Schaefer,
Here.
Linda Williams.
Here.
All right, that is a quorum. We'll go through our continuances today. The following items on our agenda are continued. Under notices of intent, we have Three Star Farm LLC at 76 Eel Point Road, SE 483884, continued till April 3rd. We have Nantucket Islands Land Bank, Smooth Humming Sway, SC 483893, continue till April 3rd. We have Sconzy Beach Preservation Fund, 59 through 83 Baxter Road, SC 483759, continued till April 3rd. We have West Shore LLC at 62 Winoma Way, SC 483869, continued till April 3rd. And under amended orders of conditions, we have 36 Tennessee LLC, 36 Tennessee Avenue, SC 483807, continued till April 3rd. With those continuances, we need a motion to accept the agenda.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Linda, and Joe, I'll take you for the second. By roll call vote, Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Mizzarelli,
Hi.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
That Engelberg, aye. That carries unanimously. And now we'll be moving on to public comment. As a reminder, this is comment for items not on the agenda today. Hey, Will, RJ is in the attendees list. Can you move him over? So this public comment is for comment not on the agenda tonight. We'll be using the select board's protocols for public comment, limiting comments to 3 minutes or less, and only taking the information down but not responding to it substantively. At this time, if you have a public comment, if you're physically present in the room, please raise your hand or let Will know. And if you're on Zoom, raise your hand virtually and we will address you. Are there any public comments? I see none online. Any in person?
No, sir.
Okay, so we'll move on to public hearing. We'll begin the public hearing under notice of intent, no waiver required. This is for items that were submitted post January 1st and are subject to the new regulations. Under that section, we have 3 notices of intent. We have the town of Nantucket, 2 Ames Avenue and Diana's Beach at C 483895. We have Pasanante at 41 Long Pond Drive, SC 483898. And we have NIR Retail LLC, 11 and 15 South Beach Street, SC 483899. As a reminder of our new protocols, we'll offer commissioners, the public, and representatives an opportunity to have these applications heard if anyone should choose to do so. And if not, we'll be voting them. We'll be voting to close them as a block. So, commissioners, Would you like to open the discussion for any of those applications?
None here, Seth.
Okay, and RJ, welcome. Could you just respond in the affirmative that you're here?
Aye. Thank
All
you.
right. Any members of the public or applicants wishing to open the discussion on any of those applications? Seeing not, what we need is a motion to close those three applications. Thank
So
you,
moved.
Joe.
I'll second Joe.
I'll take you for the second, Linda. By roll call vote, Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries unanimously. We'll now be moving on in our agenda to notice of intent waiver required. These are pre-January 1st submissions, subject to the old regulations. We'll be hearing each of these individually. The first that we have on our agenda is the Summer House of Nantucket Realty Trust, 10 and 16 Ocean Avenue, SC 483824. This is represented by Art Gasparo. Art, good evening. Hold on one
And
second.
I have a conflict. I have
Okay.
a
Yep.
conflict.
Yeah, I believe Commissioners
that one.
Williams and Turcott are recused from this. Okay, Art, feel free to go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're before you tonight with a notice of intent application, which I think, as many of you are aware, has been pending for some time. We look forward to presenting this to the commission and hopefully resolving this outstanding matter and getting it off of your agenda. As you're aware, this is the location of the what they call the Summer House Bistro, which is essentially the structures and pool down below the bank landform at Ocean Ave, and I call it the bank landform as it's not actually a coastal bank. The jurisdictional area of concern for the commission is a coastal dune along the east side of the property, which is shown on the plan. I'll give you just a second, or maybe just I'll wait a second until Will can get up the maybe the site plan is probably the best thing to use.
Sorry, Adam's not here.
No, that's okay. I think it might have been mailed separately, and I can, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman, or helpful, I have that. I have that site plan.
It's right
It's
up above.
okay with me if that's easier. Feel free to share
Thank
yours.
you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is the site plan that was filed with the commission, and to run through the what's shown here. In blue is the boundary of the coastal dune. Along the north side that's shown on the plan, there was a determination of applicability in 2017. I understand that that has since expired, but that's boundary is shown here, so it's been previously reviewed. And then the boundary runs along the existing fence and edge of existing patio, and then wraps up around the south side of the property and matches the delineation that had been done for work for the stairs within Magnolia Ave. There are various structures on this property that, based on information and aerial photographs that have been included with the application, some of which have been in existence since prior to the enactment of the Wetlands Protection Act. This has been a long-standing operation of with the pool and restaurants that are associated out here. There was a deck that had been extended sometime around the sort of during the COVID era, I guess we could call that now, and without the benefits of proper permitting. And so, as part of the notice of intent that's before you, we have shown that that deck would be restored to the size that previously existed. And then there are some plastic sheds that had been installed up on this other parcel, again held in common ownership by Mr. Benedictus. The corner of one of those sheds, while it's within disturbed area, is within the 50-foot buffer zone. So we're proposing to relocate that. Again, it's a pretty. It's not on any kind of. It's on some blocks. It's not overly significant. It would be easily moved outside of the 50-foot buffer zone to that coastal dune. And then there had been some question on the enforcement order related to this pre-existing bar under this awning, and it used to return to this building, and they had reconfigured it without adding any additional seating, and ran it straight this way where it used to return to the building. And that is partially within the 50-foot buffer zone. However, excuse me, the 25-foot buffer zone, the bar, the sole disturbed area is all within the 50-foot buffer zone. But again, it was located under an awning on a pre-existing dry laid stone patio. This flagstone patio is shown in some of the historic photos that were provided. And there's been fences of various types over the years that follow the edge of that flagstone patio. And they had replaced at some point what used to be a solid board fence with a split rail fence. And there's always been lighting along that fence, and that had come up, but that lighting again exists as it previously did, just along that fence itself. And then finally, there is this open sand area that is used for seasonal dining, and they on a daily basis put some tables and chairs out, not in disturbing any kind of vegetated area. And again, that's licensed by the town under the provisions of the liquor license, and has been again occurring for some time. There used to be, for a period of time, they were putting down sort of, I think, a Moby mat roll up or some board mats, boardwalks on the sand here, and they've agreed to no longer use those. So again, it's just, essentially the same. And then this path is just the typical sand path that continues on to the beach. So, what we've done here is tried to provide the commission with a comprehensive plan that shows everything that exists and is going on at this particular property, and we hope to obtain an order of conditions to memorial, to make the some of the changes that were just reviewed, and to memorialize what is there. And with that, I'd be happy to try to address any questions or concerns should you have them.
Thank you, Art. Commissioners, questions, comments, or concerns?
Yeah.
John in the room.
Yes, go ahead.
Hey, are these all to be done, or they already have been done and you're asking to get them permitted now?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So everything that's being asked to be done is essentially what's shown in red. In other words, the relocation of the shed that hasn't been done, we're proposing to do that. The deck exists. We're proposing to cut that off. Essentially, we recognize that had been constructed without the benefit of a permit. And then the bar is constructed, and we show it because it had been or sort of shown, highlighted in red, are really the things that had come up, I think, under both the site visit that we had, and had been points of discussion. So we want to bring it all to sort of your attention.
Other commissioners? Okay, well, I have two comments. The first is that I definitely think we should not allow the open sand area to be used for seasonal dining. I mean, I think it's a little bit insincere to not not recognize the history of why that open sand area exists and what that open sand area is. That open sand area is coastal dune. And if you look at the um, historic aerial photographs that were originally submitted as part of the enforcement for this property, that open sand area was really created, or if not created, at least enlarged by the resident or by the restaurant business taking place in that area. And I think we should definitely not allow that. And I personally think we should go beyond that in order that area to be restored to coastal dune with plantings, um, except for a small sand path that goes from the site to the beach. I think is legitimate, but our goal is to certainly not allow any type of activity in in a wetland resource area. And even though the applicant is saying that the tables are temporary and things like that, tables are structures under our definition, so we certainly shouldn't allow that. And then the other is related to the fence. I personally don't think there needs to be any lights there at all, but if commissioners want to retain the lights there, just making sure that we condition them to meet the standards of the outdoor lighting bylaw and protecting the resource areas in that way. Any
Yeah.
other commissioners' comments? Yes, Tim.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, Seth, on both of those.
Okay, Mike.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I'll certainly go along with that.
Okay. Art, I see your hand raised. Would you like to respond?
I would if I could, Mr. Chairman, if we could go through the aerial photos that I included, and I could stop sharing if you want, if you prefer that Will does that or I have it, but I would like to address the sand area because we really wanted, I anticipated that concern. And so the aerial photos that we included going back to both 1973, well, I guess first, why don't I ask you, would you prefer if I share those?
I'm going to ask Will what he wants. So, Will, do you have those or would you like Art to share them?
He's advising somebody in the room.
Art, please go ahead and share them.
Okay, so and these are in the notice, just
Yeah.
so that we're clear. So here in 1973, it was all sand in that area. And then 74, you can see there's open sand areas back there. And then we jump to 98. This is the same edge of vegetation, I believe. We can go back and look at the plan, but that's shown now. This is all open sand in 98. 2007, open sand area starting to grow in a little bit, but again, they've been just using what was open. 2014, again, all sand, not vegetation. This is all the area where that seeding is happening. So I think that, and then here's 2023 that you could actually see a table, and that's that boardwalk. But again, it's limited to what is the sandy area. Now I understand there may be some concern with it, but I wanted to just address that question to show you that, it wasn't that they started putting these into areas that were vegetated and then trampled them. There's a long history, I think, documented by the aerials that these were bare sand areas. I recognize it is within the resource area, but again, it's it's only put it out. It's not putting permanent structures in there, and I just wanted to kind of to go over that piece of things with you to respond. And then Ms. Valerie Moore is also on, and she represents Mr. Benedictus, and I believe may also wish to address these points.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you, if I may.
Before we do that, and then Ms. Moore, I'll go to you in a minute, but before we do that, I take your point about the history of the open sand area, and I'll retract my previous comment. But if I think if anything, for me at least, that presentation made it more likely to not want to allow that activity in the area. Because if you look, there's clearly lateral migration of that dune. So I take your point about it was all open sand area and then it started to grow in. And then in the last area, it's quite grown in except for that one area that had tables. Our performance standards for coastal dunes specifically say that we shouldn't permit any projects that would prevent the lateral migration of dunes. So I'm sticking to that, but just for a different reason. So Miss Moore, please go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I disagree with your characterization, but I don't think you have enough information in front of you. The applicant has retained a coastal geologist who can provide better information for the commission about how this activity has not had any impact on the dune or its ability to laterally migrate. So if the commission is so inclined, we'd like the opportunity to seek a continuance tonight so that our coastal geologist can provide you with supplemental information so that we can make a better informed decision about this activity.
Thank you, Miss Moore. We'll certainly accept that information. I think it would be valuable, but before we do that, we do need to seek input from the public. So commissioners, any other questions or comments before we go to the public?
One more.
John in the room too.
John, go
Sorry.
ahead.
One more question, Art. The bar, is that, that's in the 25-foot buffer zone, was that there before the Wetlands Act came into effect? Is that why that's okay?
Through you, Mr. Chairman.
Hmm.
No, that bar existed in a slightly different configuration. It was more of an L. And so we've requested relief from that because on the basis of no adverse impact, it's on the stone patio. So essentially, what you under the new regulations even would consider a structure, it's within another structure. And so they'd have to actually, rip that apart. They essentially just straightened it out so that the seats didn't go around the corner. And I'm told I don't have a survey of that from before that was built, but that because of their liquor license, the actual number of seats and overall length didn't change. It was eliminating the L, I think, so that to facilitate, I think maybe the bartenders or servers getting behind there and having the whole thing go straight. So but on stone patio that was pre-existing.
Okay.
But to answer your question, John, it doesn't meet the performance standards. They're asking for a waiver for that. Okay, we'll go to members of the public now. I'll recognize Willa Arsenault. Please introduce yourself for the record with any connection you may have to the project and then make your comment.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Willa Arsenault. I'm speaking on behalf of the Nantucket Land and Water Council. So first, I'd like to say we're definitely supportive of the removal of the deck and the movement of these sheds, but I question the appropriateness of memorializing these conditions as existing, and so I would request that the impacts of the structural and landscaping elements are really considered for their impact on the coastal dune resource area before anything is memorialized. And I would also echo the commission's concerns about the seating area in the open coastal dune. I would be interested in the supplemental information, but at this point, it doesn't seem appropriate to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments from members of the public? Anyone physically present in the room?
No. Nope.
Art or Valerie, do you have anything else you'd like to add? Or if not, would you like to continue till April 3rd?
I think we would like to continue, please, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we'll accept the continuance till April 3rd. Thank you both.
Thank you.
We'll now move on in our agenda to Sigalini Properties LLC at 8 Bassett Road.
Mr. Chairman,
represented by Mark
reminder,
Ritz.
please, that
Yes.
I'm recused from that one.
Yes, with Commissioner Mizzarelli recused. Mark, good evening.
Good evening, Mark Ritz from Site Design, representing the applicants at 8 Bassett Road. This is a project that was before the commission quite some time ago. It was a request to remove an existing single-family residence, construct a new single-family residence, pool, and reconfigure a pervious driveway. During the original hearing, we discussed groundwater issues on the property, and both the proposed house and proposed pool, as originally designed, would have required a waiver from the 2-foot groundwater separation. Members of the commission asked us to look at alternatives and do an alternatives analysis. We went back and reevaluated things and came up with a modified design which does not require a waiver for the pool. It involves a bit of retaining wall and fill, but there's no waiver required for the pool. It still requires a 2-foot separation waiver for the footings for the house. However, the existing structure shown on the plan in faded gray crosshatch has a foundation which is currently in seasonal high groundwater. The proposed dwelling will have footings that are located 6 to 8 inches above seasonal high groundwater, but within that 2-foot separation. But it will pull the foundation out of actual high groundwater. And that's pretty much the extent of our modifications to date. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Commissioners, questions, comments? Okay.
None in the
John, was that you? No? Okay.
none in the room, sorry.
My question then is, I think originally we had asked for an alternatives analysis for the looking at different foundation options for the single family residence. And in the alternatives analysis, there wasn't really anything about that. It just said that a full foundation would be constructed. So did you look into that, and do you have any information for us on those alternatives?
The problem is this, given the configuration of this site, area is fairly limited. We were hoping to do a full foundation on the site in order to be able to put mechanicals underneath, in order to be able to get storage space and other areas underneath. The only possible options we have is going higher on the fill and the retaining wall and getting us further out of groundwater, or losing the space and having considerably limited space for mechanicals and other items for the house. And they would really like to be able to do that, given the limitations of the lot. And we feel that we are removing foundation from actually within groundwater. So placing it above seasonal high groundwater, I think, is a significant improvement than having the foundation actually within seasonal high groundwater. So I think we're trying to move it out while maintaining the ability to have that full basement.
Thank you. And I hear that, but our concern here isn't how much space the residence has, it's how much impacts there's going to be to groundwater flow. There are plenty of other places to put mechanicals. We've seen residences have cantilevered them on the sides of buildings, or put them in sheds, or put them any number of places. So I think that we may end up with a full foundation, but how I read the regulations and the waiver request, the applicant is required to provide us a written alternatives analysis that would consider a crawl space, or a slab, or frost wall, or whatever it may be. So I'm going to request that. But before I do that, commissioners, any comments on that? Okay. Mark, are you willing to create that alternatives analysis for us?
We'll either do that or we'll go a foot and a half higher on fill.
Okay, that's a option to you as well.
So
So
yes,
seeing,
with that, we'd like to continue to the next meeting.
yes, we do have to look to the public first. So members of the public, do you have any questions or comments regarding this application? Seeing none, we'll assent to your request to continue till April 3rd.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. That brings us on in our meeting. We are done with notices of intent. We don't have any amended orders of conditions, and we'll move on to public meeting orders of conditions. We'll be beginning with McCausland at 10 Smooth Hummocks Way, SE 483897. Will, do you have this ready for us?
Yep, 1 second. I just have I have to get a Zoom link to somebody hitting send.
Okay.
Not for this portion. We're on 10 Smooth Hummocks, correct?
Yes.
Just want to make sure. Can we actually move on to the next one? It's not on this computer,
Okay.
but I have it.
So we'll temporarily hold on McCausland. We'll move on to and we'll come back to it after. We'll move on to Town of Nantucket, to Ames Avenue and Downers Beach, SC 483895. Will, if you want to put this one up, that'd be great.
And quick sidebar, Vince, do you have the O drive on that computer right now? I can never get on it from in here, but it's okay. If not,
Let me go, just give me 1 second.
not, I might send you on a very quick mission upstairs.
Sending in the mission, I do not have a drive.
All right, cool. I'll write it down for you.
Thank you.
This right here is our 2 Ames Ave and Dionis Beach order. Seth, I don't know if you would not mind summarizing this first page for a moment, just so I can write down a destination path for Vince.
So you'll remember that this is the test project by the town of Nantucket to look at some new coastal stabilization technologies that haven't been permitted before in Nantucket. We went through the process of looking into them, and we found that they aren't going to be considered a structure under our regulations, but will need a waiver for the water dependent clause, since we found them not to be water dependent. And then the other findings in here that we have are, it needs NHESP review. It's subject to those following resource areas. It's a pilot project, and there's going to be a time of year restriction. And then myself and Will looked at the conditions here, and we put some conditions on the project related to materials retrieval, monitoring, and what would be considered failure. And we have the waiver. We have the waiver in there, and that's it. Do any commissioners have questions, comments, additions? Yes, Joe.
I thought there was the issue of seeing if they could get a 1 foot space between the various blocks.
Yes, additional finding number 4 says that adding separation between the test plots will result in more accurate findings. So we told them to do that. They're okay with doing that, and this order will memorialize that. Anyone else? If not, is there a motion to issue the order of conditions as drafted? Thank you, Joe. Is there a second? We'll take Mike for the second by roll call vote. Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Miserelli,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries unanimously. And next we'll go to Pasanante at 41 Long Pond Drive, SC 483898. Will, when you have a chance to put this up, that'd be great.
Thank you for the relief batting, Seth. Much appreciated. So 41 Long Pond Drive. This was for the connection. And hold on. We're missing 3 words. Connection to the existing septic system. Of an existing studio. No, never mind. Will got ahead of himself, guys. This order permits the proposed connection of an existing studio to the septic system with associated landscaping and grading. I'm just gonna throw existing in there. Non-waiver. This is not true. So no NHESP. And then we had conditions 18, 9, and 19, and then 20 for our lighting, which I don't know if that is entirely necessary, but it looked like the studio might potentially get lights on it. And that's it.
Yeah, might as well put in it. Make sure it says does not require an ESP review. And then any application with landscaping, even in something like this, which is probably just going to be reseeding, we should still put the native species, no cultivars, and no agricultural chemical conditions. Other commissioners?
Nope.
Okay. Okay. Is there a motion to approve this order of conditions, approve and issue this order of conditions as amended?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We'll take Joe for the second by roll call vote. Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Miserelli,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries unanimously. We'll move on to NIR Retail LLC, 11 and 15th South Beach Street, SC 483899. Will, when you're ready for that.
And Seth, real quick before I even get into this one, if Vince is not back when this one's over, I'm gonna say we should just hold 10 smooth hummocks until the end of the waiver required orders, and I'm gonna go make sure that I get Vince back here because I sent him on an errand.
No worries.
And
So this order was for the replacement of the outdoor tent and walkway for the Lola 41 restaurant. I don't think it's a very complicated project, so
non-NHESP 1819 and lighting, it's land subject to coastal storm flowage. But I think we should put lighting shall be in, this is automatic anyway, but I don't mind always putting these on orders too.
Mhm. With the bylaw code.
102, chapter 102 of the town.
The new light.
I don't know.
Like the Silverstein's actually the light for it. Is he? Yeah. I don't know if he's, is he still his own?
All right.
Okay.
This was non-waiver and that's it.
Commissioners, any questions, comments? If not, is there a motion to approve and issue this order of conditions as amended?
Motion
So
to
moved.
approve the second.
Okay, we'll take Mike for the motion, Linda for the second, and by roll call vote, Tim Brain. You're on mute.
Sorry about
Still
that.
not mute. There you go.
Okay, Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Hi.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelborg, aye. That carries unanimously. And we'll move on to Swansea Beach Preservation Fund, 41 through 119 Baxter Road. There's going to be two order numbers here. There's going to be separate state and local act orders. The state act order, the number is SE 483736. The local act order is NAN 142. As a reminder, Commissioners Turcott and Schaefer are not sitting on this application, so make sure you leave the room. And I'll get us started. We closed this application at our last hearing. In between that time, the Town of Nantucket Natural Resource Department staff went through both orders to make sure that all the grammar and changes that we had requested were in there. Then I personally went through them to do the same thing. And then after that, Will, Jeff, and me had a meeting to make sure that everything was on track. And then after that again, they sent me the draft again, or both drafts again, and I went through it with a fine-tooth comb to make sure we were all good on numbering, grammar, typos, everything. And then Commissioner Plandowski caught a couple of typos for us that we have changed. So at this point, we have two separate orders. Both of these orders have been posted publicly. They're in the pack for this week. You'll notice that they're a little bit different because the State Act doesn't have a waiver. There's nothing to waive in the State Act. We only waive the regulations of the local bylaw. And then also the State Act doesn't call out the local resource areas. It only calls out the state resource areas. So what we're going to do, Will, is if you could share on the screen the State Act first, which is SC 483736. Yes, Linda.
Crazy
Are
time.
they essentially the same except for they have different jurisdictions?
The numbering is a little bit different because
Yeah.
there is less findings in the State Act because there's the resource area, the local resource areas aren't called out, but we're just gonna go through it quickly. And we deliberated on this permit for 4 months in open session, which is very rare. We usually only deliberate on orders of condition after the hearing is closed. But because of that, I think there probably isn't much that we need to do with this deliberation, but we should still get them up on the screen and go through them.
You said local first, right, Seth?
No, stay first, please.
Aha, gotcha. Coming right up.
All right. So we have all of our additional findings that relate to resource areas and things that we found to be important over the deliberation. The only one I want to call out that we talked about in our hearing, but wasn't in the permit before we edited it is the last finding.
One moment, Seth, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. We're doing sneaky things here.
So if you could scroll
Last
down.
one.
The last finding we talked about in the hearing, but I just want to read it out, which is the commission finds that due to the scale and scope of this project, that the order of conditions will be valid for a period of 5 years from the date of issuance. That's uncommon for us. We generally issue permits for 3 years, though we have the regulatory authority under the Wetlands Protection Act to issue permits for a period of up to 5 years. And given this project, I think we should exercise that authority. Everything else in here is the same as it was when we deliberated in open session, except for minor edits in grammar and typos and things like that. So then we have all the general project conditions. You can scroll through. And this is everything related to sand nourishment and all the other conditions that we talked about. And then we have the conditions that the next section is the conditions. Yep, keep going. The next section is the conditions prior to the start of construction. And scroll through this. And then the condition post initial construction. We have our set of conditions prior to the start of phase 2, which all of these have been talked about at length during our open session. And finally, if you scroll down to the end, sorry, our maintenance and monitoring conditions there. And then the last section is the failure criteria conditions. Right there. It's actually not a section, it's just condition 67. These are the failure criteria that we laid out during the notice of intent process. And that's it for this order. Commissioners, at this time, do you have any questions, concerns, comments, additions, grammar, anything like that you'd like to address?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mike.
number 52.
Okay.
Based on reports provided to the commission, the nourishment amount needed shall be at least 105,465. Because this has to go to town meeting, is there any validation to say to the reports to the commission in the town of Nantucket to solidify that at town meeting that is potentially
So the part that this project needs to do at town meeting is actually it's related, but it's separate from our process. Town meeting is needed, affirmative vote at town meeting is needed to authorize the select board to issue a license for this project. But it doesn't really have anything to do with the order of conditions. The order of conditions informs the ability for this project to meet the performance standards as conditioned and allows it to proceed under the Wetlands Protection Act, but it doesn't really relate to that other process. Does that satisfy you?
yeah, for now. See what Lynn, I don't know what Lynn just said.
Okay, Commissioner Williams?
No, I was just gonna just pretty much say you can't defer in a decision to another action by another board in any of these legal decisions. But I was
Yeah.
just going to agree with what you said, so you've already covered it.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, the plan that gets submitted to us is going to be posted publicly, so the town of Nantucket's going to have it. Everyone's going to have it at some point. Anything else? Okay. Seeing none, before we take a motion to approve and issue this order as drafted, we're going to go to the local order. I just think it makes sense to look at that. We are going to vote on them separately, but I want to look at the local order first and explain the differences.
Opened up microscopic.
You got to share your screen too.
Yep.
All right.
All right, here's our local order.
Okay, so now this is the local order under the Nantucket Wetlands Bylaw with the file number NAN 142. There's a little bit of a difference in additional findings. In addition to all the State Act resource areas and performance standards that are called out, we also have all of our local resource areas and performance standards called out. What that does is create more findings than in the State Act, so the numbering is changed a little bit, but it's not anything earth-shattering. It's just listing the resource areas and performance standards of the local regulations. And then the other thing that we need to do in this order that makes it different than the State Act order is if you go all the way down to the bottom.
Bottom of general conditions, right?
Yeah, we went through everything in the conditions of the State Act. I just want to point out the waiver. So under the local regulations, we need to issue a waiver for this project, given our finding that the geotextile tubes and coir terraces are structures, and that some of those structures are not or do not meet the classification for imminent danger. Because of that, we need to issue a waiver for the following performance standards that are listed here. And the reason for this waiver, we're saying, is under section 393F3A, which is the no reasonable alternative, no adverse impact section. So that's the difference between the state order and the local order. Any questions on that? Is there any commissioners wishing to make a comment, question, addition, grammatical issue, anything like that? Okay. So we're going to go back to the State Act order now, SE 483736, and we need a motion to approve that order as drafted. Is there a motion? Joe, thank you. Is there a second?
Mike in
Tim,
the room.
I'm going to take Tim for the second. By roll call vote, Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Miserelli,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelborg, aye. That carries unanimously with the 5 commissioners sitting. And then we're going to go back to NAN 142, which is the local act order. we need a motion to issue that order, to approve and issue that order as drafted. Is there a motion? Joe, thank you. Is there a second? Mike, thank you. By roll call vote, Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelborg opposed. That carries 4 in the affirmative, with 1 commissioner opposed among the 5 commissioners sitting. And that concludes the business of these 2 orders. Thank you. Linda, do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I just want to thank you, as the chairman and the staff for putting this together. I know how many times you met over the last couple of weeks to get this together, and I appreciate the work done on it.
Thank you as well. So Will, at this point, are we ready for McCausland at 10 Smooth Hummocks Way?
Yes, we are, and
Okay, we'll move on to that order of conditions.
I'd like to, much smaller potatoes than what just closed out, but I'll thank Vince for getting that file to me too. So thanks, Vince.
Yep.
Bringing that over now.
Yeah, no more recusals, Joe. Okay.
Also, this may not even be the time to say this, but that was a marathon, guys, and congratulations on all of your time put in. That's all. So this was for 10 Smooth Hummocks Way. I really didn't want to hold this over because it's quite simple. This was the relocation of existing structures away from the eroding coastal bank. This is nearby where there's going to be a road relocation project as well. There's no waiver required. We did have NHESP review required, and we have received that. And then just our conditions 18 and 19. I'm going to go ahead and put the lighting and planting related conditions as well, but those are my planned additions. If there's anything else.
Thank you, Will. Is there any questions, comments, additions from commissioners? Okay, we'll wait for Will to get those additional conditions added.
Why aren't we auto numbering? So,
Okay, with that, is there a motion to approve and issue this order of conditions as amended?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Linda, and we'll take Mike for the second. By roll call vote, Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
RG Turcott.
Recused.
Okay, sorry. Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries 6 in the affirmative with Commissioner Turcott recused. And that is the end of our orders of condition for tonight. We'll move on to requests for determination of applicability. The first one we have is for delineation only. That's Mueller at 43 Western Avenue, represented by Brian Madden. Brian, good evening.
Good evening. For the record, Brian Madden from LEC Environmental Consultants. So the property in question, 43 Western Ave, is at the westerly terminus of Western Ave. And the resource areas that we're seeking confirmation are bordering vegetated wetlands, associated with one of the wee weeder ponds, which is more or less a marsh at this point, which transitions to a coastal dune in the broader Surfside area, extending out to the wastewater treatment facility to the west. But we had delineated a portion of that dune that abuts up with the southwesterly corner of the BVW, which is primarily located with a confined depression. You can see the topography steps down from the house location down towards the resource area to the northwest and west. There's also bordering land subject to flooding on the property. That's an inland freshwater flooding mapped per FEMA. That's elevation 8. You can see that contour on the site plan. And yep, those are the resource areas that we're seeking confirmation of, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Brian. Will, have you had a chance to go out to the site to confirm the delineation? And if so, do you have a recommendation for us?
Yes, I do, and it's funny, this is somewhere I walk all the time, and just right instead of left is such a beautiful little, not so little marsh. Anyway, I was recommending a positive 2A. That is that the resource area delineation is confirmed accurate by this determination as shown on the plan.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions or comments? Is there a motion to issue the request for determination of applicability with a positive 2A designation?
So move, Mr. Chairman. I'll
Thank you,
second.
Linda, and we'll take Mike for the second. By roll call vote, Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries unanimously. And next
Thank
we have a request for determination of applicability with work requested. That is the Judith A. Bober Trust at 30 Grove Lane, represented by Don Bracken, or maybe by Ryan Maxwell.
Yep.
If we
He's
can bring
rejoining it.
Ryan over.
I believe, yep, he's coming over.
Ryan, good evening.
Good evening. Yeah, so it's Ryan Maxwell with Bracken Engineering. Don couldn't be here this evening. This is just a simple repair to a sewer pump pit. I guess the existing sewer pump pit on this property is taking in some groundwater. So they'd like to remove that one and install a new just prefab unit and reconnect to the sewer force main. That's the
Thank you,
extent
Ryan.
of this project. Yep.
Will, have you had a chance to go out to the site, and do you have a recommendation for us?
Yep, 30 Grove Lane, recommending a -2, and a negative, wait a second,
Positive 2.
positive 2. It's actually, I have it right here. I don't know why I did
Okay.
that, but I just want to make sure that because it would be that the work is in buffer zone, but not subject. And I think it's one of those ones that is negative. Hold on.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's negative.
Right. I still questioned it anyway. But we have the -2, which is that the work in the request is within an area subject to jurisdiction under the act, but will not alter the area. Doesn't require a notice of intent. And then also there's actually 3 determinations on this technically. I'm sorry, it's -2, -3, which are both buffer zone, not subject to filing of an NOI. And then we also have a -6 because they asked if the work was subject to additional review by our municipal bylaw. So -6 is that the work is also not subject to additional review under the Nantucket regs.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any questions or comments? Seeing not, is there a motion to issue the RDA with the -2, -3, and -6 determination?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Linda. Is there a second? Thank you, Mike, for the second. By roll call vote, Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Miserelli,
Aye.
Joe Pandowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries unanimously. We'll move on
Thank
to
you.
minor, thank you as well. We'll move on to minor modifications. The first is Netta Movigar Revocable Trust at 9 Woodbury Lane, SC 483631, represented by Brian Madden.
You want to say that name 4 times?
We'll let Brian do it.
Brian Madden from LEC representing the applicant. This was a carryover from the last meeting. There was a dead link on the web page for the application, but it's after the fact approval of some landscaping, patio, outdoor kitchen area, and some minor structural work within the outer 100-foot buffer zone. All the updates are outside the 50-foot buffer zone. This was associated with a March 31st, 2023 order of conditions, and all work has been completed to date. So that's the
I have to
extent of it.
recuse from this. I have every time it's come in.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Williams. Joe, do you have a question or comment?
I do. It says here that the document was prepared June 9 of 2025. Second paragraph, first line.
January, must be a typo.
Oh yeah,
I think it's a typo, but
January. My apologies. January, not June.
Not there yet.
Thinking too far ahead.
other commissioners? Okay, is there a motion to issue the minor mod for this project?
So
Thank you,
moved.
Joe. We'll do
Second.
Joe for the motion and Mike for the second. By roll call vote, Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Miserelli,
Aye.
Joe Pandowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries 6 in the affirmative with Commissioner Williams recused.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. And then Nantucket Islands Land Bank at 19 Walnut Road, SC 483818, represented by Liz Phelps. Good evening.
I have to recuse from this one because I did the HDC on the greenhouse.
Okay, with Commissioner Williams recused. Liz, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Commissioners. Liz Phelps representing Nantucket Islands Land Bank on this minor modification request. The permit authorizes culvert repairs at 19 Walwinet, and the culvert repair work has been completed. This minor modification request is for permission to restore the disturbed areas with native wetland plantings and overseed the disturbed lawn area with conservation grass seed mix. There is a plant list included in the application, as well as a site plan that shows locations, proposed locations, and I'd be happy to try to answer any questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions or comments? If not, is there a motion to issue this minor modification?
So moved.
Thank you, RJ. Is there a second?
Aye.
Thank you, Joe, for the second. By roll call vote, Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Miserelli,
Aye.
Joe Pandowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries 6 in the affirmative with Commissioner Williams recused.
Thank you.
And thank you. And finally, 14 Tatima Way LLC, 14 Tatima Way, SC 483840, represented by Katie Barnacle. They're in the attendees list, so we might need to help them out and move them over. And RJ, you're recused, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, Commissioner Turcott is recused.
And not Linda,
There
sorry,
I am.
No, just.
just RJ.
No, I'm
Linda,
not
you,
recused from this
yeah,
one.
you're
I'm not
sitting on this,
recused.
right? Yep,
Yeah.
I was
okay.
ignorant.
Katie, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. This is a request for a minor modification for 14 Tatima Way, if I'm saying that incorrectly, my apologies. This was just approved on March 2nd. This was a pool and shed and water closet adjacent to Hummock Pond, and the special condition number 26 requested a clarification of the groundwater elevation data to confirm the 2-foot separation below the bottom of the pool and the groundwater, and also requested schematics for the structures. And we've provided that to you and provided the source of the groundwater data from a Blackwell plan, and we provided that plan also. RJ O'Connell created a cross section that shows the groundwater. There is a difference in datums between our plan and Blackwell. So we had to make some adjustments for that, but the plan has not changed at all from what you approved back on March 2nd. This provides the source of the data. And you can see the RJ O'Connell cross section that shows the 2-foot separation and where the buildings are located in the pool. And then we have some schematics of the shed and the water closet as requested. So we request a minor modification of the order of conditions.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions or comments? If not, is there a motion to issue the minor modification?
So moved.
Thank you, Mike and Joe, for the second. By roll call vote, Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Miserelli,
Aye.
Joe Pandowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries 6 in the affirmative with Commissioner Turcott recused.
Great. Thank you very
And
much.
Thank you. We'll move on to certificates of compliance. We have 2 today. They're both for the same property owner and property, which is MVB Living Trust at 3 Corner Street. The order numbers are SE 48 1514 and SE 48 1803. These are represented by Jeff Blackwell. But before he represents them, order number 1514 is no work was done in that order, and it's lapsed and it needs to be invalidated. And 1803, there was some work done under that order. So, Jeff, are you with us?
Yes, I believe so. Can you hear me?
Yes, good evening.
Hello. So, yes, as you stated, the order conditions 1514, no work was performed. It lapsed after 3 years, and the request for this certificate of compliance is to simply for housekeeping to retire that order and allow recording of a CFC to memorialize the retirement of that permit. I don't know if you want to handle that or deal with that one.
Yeah, I think we'll handle that, and then we'll go on to 1803. So, commissioners, we need a motion to invalidate the order and to issue a certificate of compliance with no work having been undertaken for SE 48 1514. Is there a motion to that effect? Thank you, Joe. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second.
Thank you, Linda, for the second. By roll call vote, Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Miserelli,
Aye.
Joe Pandowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Linda Williams, Linda.
Yeah, aye.
Okay.
I said aye. Yep.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries unanimously. And then Jeff Blackwell, you can go on to describe 1803 for us.
Yes, so right after the previous order expired, the exact same application and plan was submitted to which led to 1803. And in this case, the building was constructed and has existed for many years. Property may be sold, so this is another case of cleaning up an old order and retiring it so that the sale can go forward. The building is more than 50 feet away from the wetland on the adjoining property, and the work is in substantial conformance with the order of conditions.
Thank you. Will, have you had a chance to go out to this site and do you have a recommendation for us?
Yes, sir. I'm just double checking. We didn't have continuing conditions. We did not. But yep, and I can also confirm on the last one that the work was not completed. And this one, everything is in accordance with the plans and narrative that was set forth for this COC request.
Thank you, Will. Commissioners, any questions or comments? If not, is there a motion to issue the certificate of compliance?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Linda. Is there a second? Thank you, Joe, for the second. By roll call vote, Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Joe Pandelsky,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
Archie Turcott,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll move on to extension requests. We have one, Nantucket Conservation Foundation at 220 Milestone Road for Gibbs Pond, SC 483519. This is represented by Karen Beatty. Karen, if you'd like to introduce that, that'd be great.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm Karen Beatty with the Nantucket Conservation Foundation, and I'd like to introduce Ada Fox from SWCA Consultants to present on our behalf.
Okay, Ada, please go ahead.
Seth, real quick.
Yes.
I'm gonna recuse because I did
Okay.
the water quality work on this.
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll have Commissioner Turcott recuse from this. Ada, go ahead.
All right. So the order of conditions for the pond was originally issued in 2022. And this pond has had a history of harmful algal blooms. And seeing that pedestrians frequently area, NCF would like to improve the water quality, and the management strategy that was developed included copper-based algicide, and that targets the harmful algae. And that's only applied when needed, and through regular testing, it can be determined when the algae reaches a certain level. In conjunction with the algicide, alum is also applied to the pond, and alum helps to deactivate phosphorus that is in the water. And that's important because phosphorus is a major food source for the algae. So when you deactivate the food source, algae levels can go down. And through regular water quality testing, over the 3 years that we've managed the pond, we have seen a reduction in phosphorus levels. And there's also been reduction of algicide applications. In 2022, there were 2 applications as opposed to last year where we didn't need to apply any algicide. And so with these results, we've been providing the Conservation Commission annual reporting to document the results. And Nantucket Conservation Foundation would like to continue managing the pond with the treatments. And so we are asking for a 3-year extension. That way we can continue treatments in a slow and cautious way.
Okay. Commissioners, is there any questions or comments? Seeing not, they're asking for 3 one-year extensions for this project. Is there a motion to issue the extension?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you, Joe, for the second. By roll call vote, Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Joe Pandowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries with 6 in the affirmative, and Commissioner Turcott recused. And we'll now move on to other business.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Thank you as well. The first item on other business is approval of minutes. We have minutes from September 6th, September 19th, October 3rd, October 17th, and November 7th, 2024. All of those minutes have been posted in the packet and circulated to commissioners. Do any commissioners have questions or comments about any of those minutes?
There's an error on the agenda anyway. It's not November 25, it's November 24.
It is 11/7/24, but it says that's what it's listed as in the packet, so I think we'll be okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve them as submitted.
It was good.
Thank you, Linda and Joe, for the second. By roll call vote, Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Joe Pandowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries unanimously. Monitoring reports. We do have a few in our packet, or at least one related to the 19 Wawinut farming operations. As always, if anyone has questions or comments about that, feel free to direct them to Will. And if they lead to significant concern, we can always discuss them at a later meeting. But with that being said, we'll move on to committee reports. Correct, Tim? You're on mute, Tim.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, just briefly, CRAC organized some public meetings on Tuesday to show plans for the Easy Street barrier. There were 3 different plans. There was public participation, and it might be worth taking a look. Also, there'll be a presentation at the CRAC meeting on Tuesday about the same thing, if anybody's interested.
Thank you. CPC, John?
Yeah, quickly, we finally assigned all the projects in this cycle to everyone and got those sorted out. We received our kind of project management playbooks, so now we're ready to kind of engage with our assigned project and get the work moving. So that's it.
Thank you. Mike, NPNEDC?
Nothing new to report.
Okay, thank you. And Linda, Harbor Plan?
We're still slogging through it. We've gone through goals and we're on recommendations, and so we're fooling with it because we don't want to put something out that's not absolutely correct.
Okay, thank you. Any commissioners' comments tonight?
Good meeting, Mr. Chairman, as usual.
We're not done yet, but thank you.
Just
any
want
other
to
comments?
echo some earlier comments, and SBPF was a big long haul for everybody. So thank you to everybody who worked on it, who had to sit on the sidelines from time to time. Appreciate it.
Yes, it was a big long haul and a process, and I'm glad we have issued the orders. There's likely to be quite a bit more of a process still at the Conservation Commission, but such is life. Any other commissioners' comments?
Just kind of a question.
Mhm.
How How does everybody feel the new agenda is working? It seems that it's doing pretty well. I like it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think the new procedures for meetings have greatly increased the efficiency of this commission. Any other comments?
Can I respond to that so fast too?
Sure.
If
Oh,
possible.
I was gonna say actually that I'm gonna request to take the last two items on the agenda in opposite order. So before enforcement
cool.
actions, let's go to staff reports. So make any staff
Yeah.
report that you want.
Perfect. I just want to say related to that, first of all, it has been super fun. And yes, I'm being facetious, but I know we've all had a little bit to get used to with the agenda change and new regulations, but I personally would like to say that I think it's going way smoother than I expected. So I think that has a lot to do with you guys, and thank you. I don't even know what to say about SBPF. I think Vince should say something, not to put him on the spot, but he's right there and he's staff. If you want to say anything, go ahead, Vince. You, Seth, if that is cool.
I'm sure he has had plenty of time to say
Have you
his
had
piece
enough?
and will in other avenues. So we'll hold off on that for
Yeah.
now.
Thank
But-
you, Chair.
But thank you, Vince, for your efforts.
Wanted
Any
to
other-
also, just in case.
Any
but
other
that's all.
staff reports?
Thanks for the gigantic marathon that you have all ran through with that. That's all Will can possibly say on the topic, so.
Okay. So the last item on our agenda is enforcement actions. We have one listed, which is 14 Plover Lane, but before we get to that, is there any others that we need to discuss that are new or emerging?
I don't believe so tonight. I'd be happy to get right into 14 Plover if you are. I know we've got a bunch of representation and
Yeah,
public.
so we'll move on to 14 Plover Lane enforcement action. Just for a little bit of recap as to what has happened in this process. At our last meeting, we had applicants or representatives from the violator, and they documented what happened on the site and the timeline for the submission of their work products, which we have received tonight. We also heard from representatives from abutters and members of the public. Any other updates, Will, at this point?
Not yet, because I don't have it in writing yet, but I did have a meeting. I guess this is actually a pretty good update for now. I'm holding off on some of our updates on the enforcement order, just to get written legal opinion. I think we're gonna probably have to have some discussion about that next meeting, but that's gonna be like a commission discussion. We'll figure out how to do that. But I do not have a response in writing yet, so that'll be for next meeting. But I just wanted to make everybody aware that I have an updated, amended, drafted enforcement order, but we are just awaiting a legal opinion from town council.
Yes, and that legal opinion is specifically related to the exact details of the fines that we can talk about at the next meeting.
Yeah, perfect.
So with that, I'll let the representatives from or representing the violator introduce tonight's items that they may have. So Brian Madden, would you like to start?
Yes, please. Thank you very much. For the record, Brian Madden from LEC Environmental Consultants. So last Friday, we had submitted some materials on the restoration aspects. I realized that the commission wants to conduct an on-site, and I think that would be extremely helpful to review everything out in the field and match that up with the plans that we submitted, and hopefully we can schedule that up this evening. But what we ended up submitting was an existing conditions plan. And I'd be happy to share anything, or will, please let
Yeah,
me know.
Brian, if you would, you should have the permission.
Yeah, feel free to go ahead and do that.
All right, thank you. Give me a minute.
Thanks, Brian.
No problem.
I can also bring it up from the digital pack on the website if that's faster, up to you guys.
Everyone can see?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, excellent. So this is the existing conditions plan that was submitted that shows the extent of the extended wetland boundaries. I'm just going to zoom in. So oddly shaped parcel with the single family dwelling in the southeasterly corner, narrow neck, and then the westerly rectangle, we're calling it. The extent of the brush cutting is shown by this dashed line right through here. As you can see, it does encroach minimally off-site, but the bulk of the brush cutting and limbing activity took place in that northwesterly rectangle, extending down portion through the neck and then out through here. I'm just going to zoom in. We established the wetland boundary along the westerly edge of the property, following this green line here. We also survey located all the existing trees, which primarily comprise down in the lower topographic portions of the property, primarily red maple trees, mature red maple trees, often multi-trunk individuals, and then transitioning more to a Tupelo style grove within the higher portions of the BVW. There's also some Tupelo in the uplands. There's also additional species like shadbush, taller shadbush within the buffer zone areas. So we have a southwesterly buffer zone area, and then we also had extended the the easterly BVW boundary from this point is where it stops. So we added an A1, A2 to A3 along that narrow neck. And this area also was part of the brush cutting activity that took place. So based off of the existing conditions and matching it up with pre-existing conditions, we developed the restoration plan, included both a large-scale restoration plan and then a detailed planting plan, along with an accompanying narrative that reviews some of the proposed work activity. But starting off of the broader restoration plan, we've identified areas where there's going to be primary plantings, as well as areas allowing for the promotion of the understory to regrow naturally. That's primarily targeting the areas that have the mature tupelos and red maple trees, where the understory was brush cut, and it's relatively a moderately closed canopy in those areas. But one area where there's a break in the canopy, and I think historically looking at some of the aerials, there was a break in the canopy there, but obviously there was shrub cover throughout. We are targeting that wetland interior to be planted. There's an area along the wetland boundary flags B6, B7, that there's a little gap in vegetation that we're going to infill. There's this buffer planting area within the open cleared area that we are targeting as well, and then heavy focus on the easterly proposed buffer zone restoration area. We are proposing to remove that existing deer fence that's outlined in this location, and we are proposing to replace it with a split rail fence up against the previously approved limit of work and the edge of the restoration area to define the break between the developed conditions and the naturalized areas and prevent any future encroachment. That would be installed post plantings. And again, our target is to get plants in the ground this spring. And, hopefully can address any commission comments, and be in a position possibly to close this out on the April 3rd meeting and be able to order the plants and get everything installed in a timely fashion. But this restoration planting plan shows those areas that I had talked about with more detail. We showed approximate plant locations, type, and number of species. So we are proposing to plant a total of 16 trees and 135 shrubs within those 5 separate planting areas, all native species that are either on the property itself or within surrounding areas, and or common to Nantucket to increase species diversity. In addition to the woody shrubs and trees, we are proposing ground cover plugs for butterfly milkweed, flat top goldenrod, and switchgrass within the easterly buffer zone areas. And we have a proposed monitoring plan, a watering plan. That's obviously going to be very important to help stabilize everything. Again, the wetland interior is more saturated, but certainly on the west end and in around the house is in around the house where there's open canopy. Certainly, there's going to be a need for heavy watering to make sure that plants successfully establish themselves. We've proposed a 3-year monitoring plan, and certainly can incorporate any elements that the commission would like to see here between the plans and the narrative. And I guess I'll stop there and turn over any questions or anything.
Thank you. Does anyone else from your team wish to speak at this point? Okay. Questions or comments from commissioners? Joe, go ahead. Yeah, let's go to Joe and then Mike after.
Okay.
What does the 3-year monitoring plan involve?
Through the chair, it involves a pre and at the start of the growing season and at the end of the growing season site evaluations to monitor health of the plantings, the status of everything, as well as any recommendations for management. There are a fair amount of surrounding vines that could compromise some of the plantings, whether it be just native common greenbrier, which can overwhelm the plantings, but also invasive bittersweet. We would work with staff on any management measures, and the narrative goes into a little bit of that as well. We'd be submitting monitoring reports at the end of the year by January 1st or at the end of the growing season to document the status of all the plants. Certainly, if there's dieback noticed, there would be a need for replacement plants. But it would just basically outline any management activities that took place to ensure the successful establishment of those plants.
Yes, Joe, do you have a clarifying question?
I do. Does that mean at the end of each of those 3 years, if there's a dead plant or 2 or 6, they'll be replaced?
Well, we certainly strive to target any percentages that the commission may assign for the restoration work. I think typically in the past it's ranged between like 75 to 90% success rate. Certainly we can have some deer browsing activity that could impede some establishment, but it doesn't necessarily mean that some browsing is going to kill off a plant and it requires immediate replacement. But that would all be monitored. But we would strive towards that 100% success rate.
Thank you, Brian. And this is one of the other reasons why we voted to also require the application for a notice of intent.
Yep.
because through that notice of intent and eventually order of conditions process, we can put a lot more specific conditions on the project with survivability or whatever else we feel is required. Joe, do you have one more thing?
I do, and that has to do with who's paying for this in years 1, 2, and 3. If, for example, the current owner sells the house.
So I'm going to answer that. So the representatives for the owner are not required to answer that. That's not our concern. However, there is a method where we can ensure that the payment is made no matter what. Within the Nantucket Wetlands bylaw, there's multiple methods of security that we can take to ensure permit compliance. One of them is the requirement to have a bond or a deposit of money made by the applicant to the town of Nantucket and held to satisfy the the issue of what happens if the property gets sold or the property owner decides not to pay or decides not to comply. We can require a bond to be held to insure against that. Mike, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question, well, two things. I'll be looking forward to the site review just because there's a lot to digest on the plan and the plant list, and walking the site's going to be very helpful. So hopefully the sooner the better that we can do that. My question, Brian, is on the establishment of irrigation. I believe I read in the packet, there was a lot of reading this week, so forgive me if I got it wrong, but that it would be drip irrigation that could be removed when things are established. Would that be the method for the irrigation?
Yeah, if the commission's also comfortable with, we could put some things on sprinklers overhead, spray casts, but yeah, any water would be coming from the house. So we would have above ground lines. We're not installing anything permanently to reach the westerly planting areas. So
Okay, yeah, above ground lines is just so we're not leaving a bunch of plastic laying around there at the end. So thank you.
Other commissioners? I see Mr. Bailey, but before I go to you, I have a few comments. So the first is, as I mentioned, as a possibility of holding a bond, I absolutely think we should require that because that gives us surety and security of this project happening to completion. This is going to be an expensive project in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, probably once you pay all the contractors and provide all the plant material. And I think we should hold that bond to make sure it gets done. The second is, and this might be a better discussion for when we actually have the notice of intent hearing before us, but the other method of security that is allowed by the commission that's specifically called out in the Nantucket Wetlands bylaw is requiring a conservation restriction to be put on the land. And I think we should strongly consider this because we can't go back and fix what happened in the past. The violation happened no matter what. And the restoration is hopefully going to get the parcel of land back to a place that is ecologically functioning, to a similar, if not the same, level of ecosystem services that it did before. But in order to absolutely prevent any additional violations, we should put into place whatever secure processes we can to make sure that this doesn't happen. And I think the requirement to put a CR on this property would be a very strong way to ensure that this restoration works and lasts in perpetuity and serves the interests of the resource areas that we protect. My other questions are, it seems to me that we've been talking a lot about the plants that were cut, and I think that's the primary issue of the violation here too. But Mr. Madden, you referenced it a little bit, but I have some questions. So can you confirm that a fence was installed without the benefit of a permit? And it's come to the attention of the commission that lighting on the house may have been installed as well. Are those things accurate?
Yeah, so you can see I'll trace it here. Here's it's basically a 6-foot deer fence, the wood post, wire mesh was installed in this location approximately. That is proposed to be removed. I think I submitted some photographs that show it as well. And yeah, it looks like the lighting that was installed on the back of the house may not be compliant with the town code as well as the order of conditions, the amended order of conditions. So certainly that would need to be addressed.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any other comments? Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, could you just explain briefly what a conservation restriction is?
Sure. A conservation restriction is a legal document that is recorded or registered with the deed of the property that permanently protects the property from development. It eventually makes developing the portion of the parcel impossible and it lasts in perpetuity. So we could request that the area that's at the northwest part of this parcel, which is the area that previously had a mature wetland system and forest system on it, and is now the primary area of the restoration. We could request that the applicant, or we could require that the applicant put a conservation restriction on that part of the parcel, and not on the part of the parcel where the house and patio and driveway are. And by doing that, we would make sure that this area was unable ever to be developed and had to be in perpetuity maintained as a wetland and natural system.
Thank you.
Okay. Other commissioners, I think there was somebody.
I
Yeah,
just have a follow-up
yeah.
question on what Tim
Okay,
was talking about on
Mike,
the
go ahead.
conservation. I mean, it's undevelopable as I'm not ruling it out and I'm not questioning the validity of it, but it's undevelopable as it is. So just I'm just curious on your thinking on what more that adds.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. There is a very small section outside the 50-foot buffer. It's undevelopable as it is in today's conditions, but wetland areas and conditions do change. So this would make that property required to be held in conservation purposes in perpetuity, no matter what happens.
Thanks.
We don't have to do it. It's just an option that's available to us. Okay. Yes. Joe, go ahead.
At the last meeting, there was a lot of talk about fines. I have not heard one word about fines this evening.
Yes, the reason for that is because we are in coordination with KP Law and Nantucket's Town Council to figure out some of the specific details of the fines. Because there's a little bit of a difference between what the town code says and what the Nantucket Wetlands regulation or wetlands bylaw says, so we have to figure out the details of that. And what Will has done has been to coordinate with the town council to request a legal opinion, which we should have at our next meeting, and then we can go from there. Joe, go ahead.
I do have one other point, and that is I'm not in favor of fines. And the reason I say that is the fine money is going to go to the town general fund. We're trying to fix this property up. I just assume somehow or other, if let's say a fine was going to be $10,000, it gets spent trying to do a better job in the area that was destroyed.
Yes, I understand that point. In addition to the fines that we issue, if we do end up issuing them, by requiring a notice of intent to be submitted as well. When we updated our regulations that went into effect on January 1st of this year, notice of intents that are required to be filed as a result of a enforcement related issue. The fee for those filings is 10 times the regular filing fee. The regular filing fee changes depending on what category of activity they're hoping to do, but the enforcement related fee is going to be 10 times that. So that's going to be money, additional money going towards the Conservation Commission as a result of our updated fee structure. Commissioner Turcott, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Engelborg, through you to Mike's previous question as well. I just would like to add, I actually think it is a great idea for the commission to consider, and right now we're reacting to something that happened, and we're not entirely sure exactly. We don't have an inventory of what the resources were there. But a conservation restriction requires somebody independent to come in every single year and review what was there with photographs, with documentation. They'll be allowed to build within what we call the building envelope where they have, but everything else is going to require regular inspection in a way that we're not capable of doing otherwise. So I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to elaborate, it will require an external party to hold that restriction. It will require approval by the Town of Nantucket Select Board and the state. So it is a very strong way to ensure that that parcel remains in conservation purpose for perpetuity and is not subject to additional violations. Any other commissioners at this point?
One more.
John in the room.
Yes. Go ahead.
Going back to this idea of a bond, I'm kind of on the fence here. I mean, this violator has stepped up to the plate. They've got this plan in place. They're ready to pull the trigger. Seems like most of the heavy lifting is going to be done right away. So I'm not sure that this is, if they were ignoring us or something like that, that maybe it just needs to be thought about a little bit more, I think. Before we go down.
Thank you, John. It's certainly within our discretion to revisit that issue if we choose. We did vote to issue fines, but we could amend the enforcement order to decide not to do that if there was a reason to do that. But before we do that, I think it would be wise to wait for town council's opinion on that anyways.
Yeah.
Will, go ahead.
Oh, cool. I wasn't sure if you could see me. And I had a fairly lengthy meeting with town council today. I feel it's probably proper practice for me to wait until I actually have the opinion in writing. I considered summarizing what I garnered from the meeting today, but I just think it's probably much better practice, and potentially
I'd say
maybe even an open meeting law violation since I don't
Yeah,
have it.
let's
in
wait
hand.
for the legal memo in writing to be submitted to us so it can be posted publicly for everybody to see.
Thank you all.
Commissioner Turcott.
Thank you, Seth. Just a quick question in relation to what John said. If folks are not feeling good about the bond, the fact that we have them bringing an NOI in would require certificate of compliance, and the work we stated would have to get done that way anyways, no matter who owned it, correct?
I think so.
That is accurate through you, Seth.
Yeah.
It could potentially be
It's
a little less stringent.
it's accurate in theory,
Yeah.
but in practice, having the money set aside ensures that projects will happen without excessive delays or legal action or anything. I mean, in theory, all projects that are permitted will happen, but it doesn't always happen that way in reality. So I'll recognize Mr. Bailey at this point. Actually, before I do that, Mr. Wood, I'm going to recognize you because you're on behalf of the violator.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple quick points. One is I vaguely recall on DiMartino, I don't even recall, to be honest, if we had a bond there or not, and the restorative work there was a lot more than we're talking about here, obviously, in terms of hundreds of thousands of dollars. I recall that we found it extremely difficult to even get someone interested in issuing a bond for this kind of thing, because it's very different than like a subdivision where you're trying to get a bond. Secondly, in terms of putting money towards security, I think the point's been raised that the bulk of the work is going to get done almost immediately. So any monies that might be set aside through a checkbook account or through a bond or something would be, if we have failure beyond, above that 75 or 80% or whatever the commission determines is appropriate. Yeah, I think realistically with the people that are involved here, with LEC involved, given that a good amount of this work is actually in the BVW, so it's going to be a higher water table. I think the success rate here is going to be significant. Just a quick comment there. Secondly, in terms of the restorative work, our office has been working with Mr. Bailey's office in relationship in particular to that one blue sliver for his client Delaney. We're in active discussions about it. Brian's going to be in further discussions with Oxbow to work out the details there. So we're actively working with the neighbor in particular that had the area that was impacted in that stretch to make sure that we can reach an accord on that. We already have filled it in pretty substantially, but we're in discussion. So I just wanted to let the commission know that we're actively working in that front too. And then thirdly, I'm more obviously totally concur that it's not appropriate to discuss the fines or any of that. I would just point out that we did, as a team, work extremely hard to get the filing done expeditiously, not by tomorrow, but by last Friday. So from our standpoint, based on the vote of the commission, we believe that fines should terminate as of last Friday. And with that, I'll turn it back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. I appreciate that. And we do appreciate your work on behalf of this situation to get things in on a timely fashion. So at this point, we are in a public meeting, not a public hearing. I'm not required to take public comment, but I'm willing to take public comment if relevant. We're going to start by taking public comment for the representatives on behalf of the abutters. And then after that, we'll seek general public comment that is not repetitive of anything that's been submitted via letter or said at last week's or last commission meeting. If you're repetitive, I will cut you off. So at this point, we will go to Mr. Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Dan Bailey, I'm a land use lawyer at Pierce Atwood in Boston, and I represent the Delaney and Wagner families that own abutting properties at 16 and 12 Plover. I want to thank you for the opportunity to make some brief comments and requests for the commission to consider. And I normally don't script my remarks for the Conservation Commission. I'm sort of ad hoc, but tonight I did because there's a lot going on. I want to keep it all straight. But before I get into the prepared remarks, I want to respond to a couple of things that came up tonight. Mr. Wood is correct. We are discussing, particularly the impacts on the Delaney property. I want to note that the restoration plan is not showing any restoration. It's a narrow sliver, but there were impacts on the Wagner property to the sort of southwest as well. We will talk about those also, but we would expect the commission to direct the owner to also make restoration there. The conservation restriction, I think, is a great idea. Every other, I don't want to overstate this, the abutting properties and many of the nearby properties within this subdivision have a restriction that states that the wetland vegetated areas shall remain forever wild. The owner of this property, and I think it was the prior owner, don't think it was the current owner, refused to renew that restriction a few years ago. And if the commission requires a CR, then that will put this property back in the same situation as the other properties within the subdivision. I'm quite familiar with conservation restrictions. I work on them very regularly. And the benefit of a conservation restriction, I know one of the other commissioners said, well, it's a wetland area. You really can't do anything anyway. And that's absolutely correct. But the beauty of a conservation restriction is that there's direct enforcement authority by contract in whoever holds that conservation restriction. And in this case, I would expect it to be the Conservation Commission, but it could be the Conservation Foundation. It could be any number of qualified environmental organizations. More generally, I want to comment one more time on the impact of this clear cutting, and the commission has touched on this. And I know you appreciate the scope of the violation, but it's important that the record reflect that the vegetation that was removed cannot be restored. It can be replaced in part, but it will be many years, probably decades, before the dense vegetated wetlands with a mature understory and midstory that were there a month ago are restored. I also want to make clear in the record that this work was no mistake. It's a sophisticated developer. He built a house on the site. There was a wetlands delineation line, and nonetheless, over a half-acre of clear cutting occurred that probably required the people doing that work to stand in standing water. The wetlands line were clearly identified in plans approved by this commission last fall. This work was done so that the owner of 14 Plover could have a clearer and more open backyard to improve the property value of this particular site. The owner has submitted a restoration plan. My clients have engaged their own restoration consultant, Scott Smyers at Oxbow Consulting. I think he's familiar to the commission. I know Scott has worked on Nantucket. And he has independently assessed the damage that was done and made his own recommendation about how best to restore that damage. Mr. Smyers submitted a letter to the commission, and he apologizes for not being available tonight, but he had a prior commitment. And he had 3 recommendations. And I'm optimistic that this commission seems to be heading in this direction. The first is to do a site visit and confirm that the wetland boundary delineations and type of resource areas impacted are as submitted by Mr. Madden and include local and state potentially protected vernal pool habitat, which Mr. Smyers has identified. Not sure it's vernal pool, but that should be looked at further. The second is to review and approve a restoration plan with native plants and adequate watering and monitoring, and you've discussed that tonight. And the third, which has not been discussed, is invasive plant monitoring and control within and adjacent to the property. And just to elaborate a little more, on item 1, we ask that the commission direct the owner to authorize Mr. Smyers to do a joint visit. Maybe it could be part of the site visit the commission is going to do with Mr. Madden, so that Mr. Smyers and Mr. Madden can agree on a delineation and a survey of removed trees. Mr. Madden's report indicates that no trees were removed, but my client, Mr. Delaney, has submitted, with the letters that I submitted to the commission, pictures that show that there are tree stumps and felled branches. This is a factual issue. I don't want to debate this, and I suspect Mr. Wood doesn't want to debate this. The professionals should be able to do a site visit, come to an agreement about what living trees were cut down, what dead trees were cut down, and how much sort of mid-story branches were cut down. With respect to the restoration plan, it's a start, but we don't think it goes far enough. LEC proposes 5 planting areas in which there will be about 16 trees and a little, about 130 something small shrubs. And we saw it before, but could you put up the plan that shows the restoration plan?
Yep, I think, yep.
That's perfect. Yeah, that's exactly it. And that's a good start. But one of the things, that my client, it's really important to my clients. I had a long conversation with them today. Yes, okay, this proposes restoration, but what we had here was a dense vegetative thicket. And what this is going to look like is a cultivated landscape plan, which isn't a terrible thing in certain circumstances, but it's not the dense vegetation that was there before. And rather than having the sort of circles that are shown on this plan, maybe you need to back out a little bit on this. There we go. Yeah, particularly in the green. Those areas between the green, our suggestion, fill them all in. Yeah, sure, it's going to grow, but the goal here should be to restore what was there previously as quickly as possible. It can't happen tomorrow, can't happen next year, it can't even happen in 3 years. But let's plant it as robustly as possible so that the thick vegetative screen is back there as soon as possible. The other thing that we wanted to mention, and there hasn't been a lot of discussion on this yet, is this clear cutting is going, and now I'm getting a little outside of my expertise, but I talked with Scott about this. He said, you got to be really careful about invasives. Yes, they're going to be doing some restoration, but that clear cutting is also going to allow the invasives to grow. And you need a significant invasives monitoring plan and control plan to make sure that the invasive species, which are ubiquitous here, don't take over. So we would suggest that there be that the commission require an invasive restoration. That is the last thing we want. An invasive management and control plan. And it's in there, and I think it goes there, but our suggestion is that it would be required for 3 to 5 years with regular monitoring and review. And again, Mr. Chair, as you stated earlier, the best way to do that is through an NOI and follow up on the NOI and request for compliance. The other thing I want to mention is that we all have the interest of getting this work done as soon as possible. So what the commission can do is it can authorize the planting plan, wherever that ends up, under the enforcement order, and then, as you mentioned earlier, and after the fact, NOI, so the commission has the ability to adequately condition the requirements of the work going forward. And that's what I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. And I think that's exactly what we're planning to do. When you talk about this planting plan as a first step, that's how I see it. We're trying to get some native restoration plants in the ground as soon as possible, and then require a notice of intent to really continue the full restoration of the site with invasives monitoring, with additional plantings, with follow-up conditions and everything like that. I take Mr. Bailey's point about some of the details on this plan. If you look at the ground cover plug area or some of the shrub areas, nature doesn't grow in straight lines. So will it end up looking more like a park than a natural ecosystem? Probably for a little bit, but by requiring a notice of intent, we can ask them to go in and to diversify that, to add more understory vegetation, add more vine cover, increase the tree canopy, even maybe manage some of the species that grew much more efficiently than the other species, to take some of them out and plant additional species to have it be more diverse. So we have a lot of ability to do all that through NOI. We have very limited ability to do that through an enforcement order if we want this enforcement order to happen this spring. So I think we should let this be a first step in the process and have them get something in the ground. And then in the notice of intent, talk about all this. Who has their hand raised for the in-person room?
It's Will.
Go
I know
ahead.
it says TV. How do I undo that? I just wanted to throw in a super quick staff word of caution if possible. It can wait until the NOI, but it's pretty brief.
Go ahead.
I just want to say I agree with a lot of what was said about kind of looking at diversity and whatnot, and maybe pick some different species. I personally don't hate the species list, but the one thing that just popped into my head, as an arborist and someone with some serious planting experience, I always caution against instant gratification. It is not always best to go for planting density in the long run. It is best to give plants the space that they need to grow into, and that's just a pretty true botanical thing. But obviously, who knows if the density is kind of at its feasible limit or not, but I just wanted to throw that out there super quickly. That's it.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other comments or questions at this point? I just wanted to circle back to one thing about the potential holding of a performance bond or other deposited funds. And I hear what Mr. Wood is saying about much of the cost is going to happen up front, but not all the costs, because there's going to be multiple years here. And I think if we don't want to go down that route, the other opportunity available to us is to require that the applicant provide fully executed contracts, with signatures saying that they've committed to the expenditure of those funds. So we have a lot of options available to us. Any other commissioners?
Seth?
Yes, Mike, go ahead.
I just going back to the bond for a second, and we can discuss it more when the time comes, but I believe that would, if the property got sold, that would probably give us some more tools. Somebody else comes in and buys the property. I realize that they're tied to things through the notice of intent, but I would I would think the bond just gives you a little more security overall.
Yes, it definitely provides more security. Okay, seeing no other commissioners at this point, I'll let Mr. Bailey make a quick follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just real quickly, a couple of things. I think, and I know my clients believe financial security is really critical here. Make sure the work gets done. You know, I know the commission has experience with chasing people to get work done. It's always challenging. And I agree that you have a lot of tools at your disposal, whether it be a bond or lien or a lot of other things, and I encourage you to do that. The other thing I wanted to mention, which I forgot to mention previously, but I did mention it in the letter that we submitted to the commission. You know, the commission has, you know, there's an open order of conditions here for landscaping plan, a plunge pool, lighting. You know, we've expressed our concerns about the lighting and some of the other things that have been done, but the commission has a reg that says that you have the authority to revoke an order of conditions if conditions have changed or if there's non-compliance. And one of the things you could consider doing here, given the gravity of the activity, is the way I'll put it, is you have the authority to revoke your order conditions for that pool. You know, I know that is a fairly serious remedy, but there is precedent for this. Mr. Engelborn, you and I are always debating this. And unfortunately, I'm going to pull age rank and say it's probably back 2008, 2009, where there was a subdivision on Gardner Road where the commission reopened a hearing. I was representing the applicant in that particular one when purported new evidence came in regarding groundwater height. Well, this is no different, and there's an opinion, and Mr. Pucci can provide it to you, that says, yeah, the commission has the authority to reopen previously issued orders of conditions if there is a change in circumstances. That's very specific in your bylaw. It's in the letter that I sent. And in this particular case, that may be something you may want to consider, given the you know, the extent of the violation here, and you know, reopen that order of conditions and consider whether it's appropriate to continue to authorize the pool and the landscaping that were authorized under that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. I'll agree in the sense that we do have that option. I'm not going to weigh in on whether it's a good option or not, but it is an option available to us. There's also, you know, the ability potentially to, rather than requiring a new notice of intent to be submitted for this project, to require that an amended order of conditions request be submitted as well. So there's a lot of opportunities to ensure total site compliance with this project.
Thank you.
Commissioners, anything on that? All right, I'm going to recognize Tony Cahill at this point. Please introduce yourself for the record, your connection to the project, and make your comment.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much for allowing me to speak. I think you all are doing a great job in setting an example for future projects that to avoid future projects like this. I do want to say that I agree with Mr. Bailey's recommendations, but I also think that number 16 Plover Lane and Crow's Nest Way 10D never had site easements through to the Walwinet Road. And I do think additional plantings should be done along the property lines for both adjacent neighbors, plus the Plover Lane or the Crow's Nest Way resident, as well as all along the Walwinet Road. We should not be able to drive down the Walwinet Road and be able to look through, even though it might be, 5 or 10 years from now, a little bit disparaged, but it's, that they should be blocked off. I do think a bond should be presented. And my last thought is fertilizers. Will they be using fertilizers in order to enrich the new plantings? That's all I have. But thank you so much. You all have spent a lot of time on this project. Unfortunately, it's a shame that this has occurred. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Kale. Mr. Madden, can you answer the question regarding fertilizer?
Yeah, anything would be done in compliance with the regulations.
Okay. And also the commission has the ability to restrict the use of any agricultural chemicals in any way it sees fit. So at this point, I'll recognize Henry Reeder. Please introduce yourself for the record with any connection you may have to the project and make your comment.
My name is Henry Reeder. I'm an architect. I live in Wauwinet and have lived in Wauwinet for many years. Unfortunately, I'm watching this program on my iPad and I cannot really read the drawings. One question is the size of the trees, the diameter of the trees, as large as they can be, and is this being monitored by anybody? The secret to the instant forest is the size of the trees you plant.
Thank you. I would say the question is it as large as they could possibly be? The answer to that is probably no. I mean, there are larger DBH trees that exist in nursery stock. That might be hard to find, and they might be quite expensive, but they do exist. The real question is it feasible for them to find those, or does the commission is the commission willing to accept a higher number of smaller plantings to have the same biomass versus a smaller number of larger plantings? Because no matter what we do, they're not going to be able to replace the DBH of the plantings that were cut. So it's kind of, we have to figure out what's right for this site.
I understand that, but the smaller they are, the longer you're going to wait before you've accomplished what your goal is.
Yes, we're aware. At this point, I'll recognize Allison Hudson. Please introduce yourself for the record with any connection you may have to the project and make your comment.
Hi, Seth. Thank you so much. This is Allison Hudson speaking. I am also a member of the Wauwinet neighborhood. I have a comment and a question. My comment is in regards to the deer fence, and it's notable that every farm on the island and every proper garden has a deer fence significantly higher than 6 feet, which makes me wonder if this was really intended as a deer fence at all, because everybody knows that a deer can jump well over 6 feet. Thank you so much. My other question through you to the owner of 14 Plover's team is with regard to the watering of the new restoration. We're all on wells in Wauwinet, and they're not in self-contained containers. We all sort of share the waters. So, with regards to the bond and the effect that the water and the maintenance and the disturbance to the neighborhood has, it will be quite a long time. And as everyone knows, it's a dense neighborhood. So I would just echo the encouragement of the requirement for the bond. Thank you so much.
Thank you. At this point, we'll go back to Mr. Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to react to the comment about the possibility of going back and the commission seeking to remove the pool. point out that the pool as approved by the commission is where the patio is shown, to my understanding, right up against the house. It's been fully approved. I think that suggestion carries no weight legally. I don't think the commission is in its legal rights to require something that would just be purely punitive and would have no relationship, no nexus whatsoever to the work that was done and the restorative plan. So I would trust that the commission would frankly flush that idea out of their heads. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Kale, do you have a follow-up comment? Tony, do you have something else to add? Okay, I'm gonna assume not. So commissioners, at this point, do you have any additional questions or comments? Mike, go ahead.
Thank you,
No,
Mr. Chairman.
no, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Mike, go ahead.
Just one comment with regards to the tree size. I believe it was Mr. Reader who made the comment. I mean, at some point, trees get so large that you need big equipment to get in there. I'm just going to suggest, for purposes of the conversation, you know, a 3.5-inch caliper is probably a good size, and getting above that, that's something we're going to want to have to consider on how that gets in there.
Yeah, thank you. I certainly wouldn't want to require tree spades and stuff like that going into disturbing that wetland even more. So I think that the plan, I mean, I personally reviewed the plan. I think the species on there are good native species. Is it my favorite plan of all time? I'm going to honestly admit that the answer to that is no. But it's our job to, I think, start with that plan and then go through the NOI to continue to improve it.
And one last comment, because there's a lot of the public present, is we can even mimic multi-stem trees if we can't find multi-stem trees by planting them in such a way. So hopefully that would help restore the look of the natural wetland.
Yes. Other commissioners, any questions or comments? Joe, go ahead.
A comment for Miss Hudson. I completely agree with her. 6 feet is nothing for a deer fence. Minimum is 7, preferable is 8. We have Olympians on this island.
I think honestly, I think the plan is just calling it a deer fence because that's the closest thing that it looks like. But I don't think at any point even the violator claimed it was a deer fence. I think they're just calling it a deer fence because it's not a split rail or a board or anything like that. Will, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't get the opportunity to talk about trees enough. But for the same reason as Mike, I just want to say, because I know there's a lot of the public here, and I never want to sound like I'm discouraging a better outcome. But I just want to say I'd be happy to include some research articles in the next packet, because I think it's really important to get the best outcome. And there's sort of a bell curve to what you get out of plant material, and the larger you go, the better it looks in the beginning, but you most of the time end up with less growth, so that even when you plant like a 3-inch caliber tree versus an 8-inch caliber tree, in 10 to 15 years, that 3-inch caliber tree is much larger than the 8-inch caliber tree that you planted. So it's a mixture of transplant shock and just the growth rates of trees, and you're establishing them for 15 to 20 years in some field and then moving them to Nantucket. So if they're younger, it works better.
Yeah, especially with the very specific soils that we have on Nantucket, you want that vegetation to grow and adapt to it. I know it isn't a very satisfying answer or a satisfying way to proceed, but it is scientifically a good way to move forward. So at this point, we need to take a few actions. There was requests to have a scheduled site visit. So we should attempt at this meeting to schedule that site visit. There's also been requests by abutters to allow their wetland scientists to be present at that site visit because Mr. Smyers is not an agent of the commission. He's not legally required to. Like if it was our third party reviewer, they would be allowed to be there. But we're gonna ask Mr. Madden or Mr. Wood if you would assent to Mr. Smyers being there on that site visit.
I'm not going to presently do that, Mr. Chairman. Our issues with the neighbors are with the work that was on their properties. And that's what we see as our focus of working with Oxbow. So, I mean, that's not something I can agree to presently. I would need to discuss it with my client. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. And I will ask you to discuss it, but that's fine for now. With that being said, our next regularly scheduled field viewing, I believe, is on
The April 1st,
April the 1st, April Fool's Day.
Yeah, I did it.
Commissioners, are you available to make the field viewing on that day?
Yes.
Okay. Representatives from the violator, are you available to be there physically present on that day?
Yes. Are we talking 3 or 4 o'clock?
It would be 4 o'clock since we're after daylight savings time.
Okay.
It would be
Yes.
4 p.m. Or we'd be meeting at the office at 4 p.m. and the drive out's about 15, 20 minutes. So it would probably be there 4:15, 4:20.
We'll be there.
Okay. So that is taken care of. And the other thing that we need to decide on is if we're going to hold off on accepting this restoration planting plan until after that site visit, or if we want to accept it now. If we want to hold off, we don't need to do anything else. It's obviously just gonna not allow them to proceed with any of the plantings. So commissioners, thoughts on that? RJ?
On this one, I defer to you and Mike. I want to see stuff get in the ground, but and I feel like the NOI, we can address filling in the gaps on what we don't love about it. But if you guys have more expertise than me on this, feel differently, I could be swayed. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'd love to have them be able to start planting as soon as possible, but I think if we're going to ask for a field viewing, it makes sense to wait just in case we discover any unique features to that parcel and we're going to request any changes. But I would think that we would be really targeting April 3rd as a final date that we would accept that restoration plan.
Got John in the room too, sorry.
John, go ahead.
Well, Mr. Chair, can't we do both? Can't we get them started and then if we find something at the site visit, we could make changes or suggestions at that time?
We can, yeah, we certainly can. It's up to this commission to decide if we want to do that or not.
That'd be my thought. Let's get it going.
Okay, other commissioners, how do you feel on that?
Mike in the room.
I guess question back to Brian. I mean, I certainly want to would like for everybody's benefit to see it get started sooner rather than later, but we're talking 10 or 11 days at this point. And Brian, do you have an opinion if that makes it a difference?
Yeah, I think it would be helpful to get some consent so we can definitively order the plants and have them ready. If we certainly need to augment that or do any replacements, I think after the meeting on the 1st and the 3rd, we should have the ability to modify on the fly. But we would like to get the plants ordered as quickly as possible, given the time of year.
Okay. So
I think we have a
my
way to figure this out then. Um, we could authorize um, the applicant here, the violator, to order all the plant materials specified on the restoration plan, but not begin the planting of that plant material until after the site visit.
Sounds good to me. I mean, I apologize. I forget who brought it up, but there's some concerns from the Wallwinnet Road side as well that we'll want to look at when we're on the site visit.
Okay, so there is a cease and desist, so we would need a motion to authorize the ordering of the plant material as specified on the restoration plan. Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make that motion to lift the cease and desist order in able to get the violator to order the plants. I'm sorry, I really blew that wording.
Yeah, lift the cease and desist for the sole purpose of ordering the plants, but not for any planting or other activities on site.
So moved.
Joe, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, RJ, for the second. For further discussion, Joe, do you have something to add?
I did before.
Go ahead.
Before you proceeded. And that is, who's doing the ordering? It's not us, it's the violator who's doing the order. Is that correct?
Ordering the plant material? Yes, it's them.
Okay.
So we have a motion on the floor that's been made and seconded. If there's no additional questions or comments, we'll move to a roll call vote. Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Mizzarelli,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Bless you. Bless you.
Linda Williams,
Sorry about that.
Linda, are you with us? Okay, Seth Inglework, aye. That carries 6 in the affirmative, and Commissioner Williams abstained. So we'll amend the enforcement order to allow you to order the plants. And we're going to hold off on accepting the planting plan until after the field viewing. And one request that I have prior to the April 4th meeting is if you could indicate the contractor or contractors of who is going to be doing the physical planting and restoration work, and provide us contracts indicating that you've secured their services, we would appreciate it. Joe, question or comment?
I thought it was April 1st.
April 1st is the field viewing. April 3rd is the meeting that will actually be discussing this, because we can't have substantive discussion at a field viewing, only at a meeting.
Got it.
Brian, is that acceptable to you?
Yes. Yep. We can do that.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions or comments or things you think we need to do?
Good.
I think we're all set for now. So
Thank you.
Thank you as well. You'll move forward to amend that enforcement order, and we'll continue to follow this up. We'll see everyone at the April 1st field viewing and at the April 3rd meeting of the commission.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we're at the end of our agenda. So we simply need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Joe got you, and Mike will take you for the second by roll call vote. Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Joe Pandowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
Roger Turcott,
Hi, great job, everybody.
Linda Williams. Seth Engelberg votes aye. That carries 6 in the affirmative with Commissioner Williams abstained, and this meeting is adjourned. See
Thank you,
all.
guys.
Have a good night.
Industry.